logged in as well. So
Okay.
why don't we'll make this the starting point, and why don't I say thank you everybody for coming to our virtual Meet the Candidates event. This is definitely a different way of doing this event. So we're thankful that you all came and that you're running for office. I'm going to turn things over to Marguerite Landry, who's the chair of the Library Board of Trustees, and she will be our MC for the evening. If you need any technical support, I will be here in the background for you.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm not a good public speaker, so I'm just going to say I'm glad you're running. I know many of you already, and I think it's a lovely chance for the residents of Southborough to hear in this strange time, even if it's on a screen, something about why you're running and what you hope to bring, and what your philosophy is of how the town should be governed. So simply enough. And with that, I will ask Kim Regan, who's running for on a second term, Kim, on the Library Board of Trustees.
Sure. I just wrote a quick statement. I don't think I'll take my full 5 minutes, but here we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Regan. I've served on the Library Board of Trustees for the past 3 years, and I'm running for re-election. I think that communities benefit greatly from strong and well-supported public libraries. The Southborough Library works really hard to meet the needs of our town, and I'm interested in continuing to support the library as a trustee. My professional experience is in digital marketing, and I'm currently finishing a master's program in library and information science. While my career focus will likely be in digital asset management, the knowledge I've gained through my coursework has provided me with insight on library operations and how to support our staff and patrons. During my first year of my term, I served as secretary for the board. I've also worked to help the library with projects involving marketing strategy, website usability, and metrics tracking for digital resources. I've been a Southborough resident for nearly 11 years, and over the course of this time, I've seen the library grow and respond to the evolving needs of our community. I've enjoyed being part of the board, and I want to continue to support the library so it can meet the needs of Southborough residents in ways that are sustainable and fiscally responsible. So I consider it a privilege to serve on the Library Board of Trustees, and I humbly ask for your vote in May. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, that was much under time, but that's okay. That's perfect. You said it. You said what you needed to say. Our next speaker will be David Eckberg, who is actually his previous tenure as a trustee was as a replacement for a trustee who stepped down, and so he is sort of an incumbent. But I think this is, I think it's your first candidates night, right? You're muted. Still muted. Can't hear.
There we go. Is that
There
better?
we go. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm David Eckberg. I've been a resident of High Street since 1981. And as Marguerite just said, I'm running as an incumbent for re-election to a full 3-year term on the library trustees. I fulfilled the final year of my predecessor, who left after 2 years. So this is the first time I've run for a full 3-year term. I'm going to say a couple of things about myself, and then more importantly, say some things about the library. Quickly, who am I? I grew up in Western Massachusetts. I went to college in the Midwest. I earned an MBA from Babson. I was awarded a Bronze Star for service as an Army officer in Vietnam. The bulk of my career has been in Boston in financial services. I worked for a regional bank there and also for a large European bank. I have owned and managed commercial real estate, and I've been on the board of, certainly on the board of directors of 3 small private companies. Finally, I have some fiduciary experience with not-for-profits, and it includes for 10 years being a trustee of the Hurricane Island Outward Bound School, where I was the chair of the board's marketing committee, and also 6 years as a trustee at Babson College, where I was the chair of the board's investment committee. And I'm also currently on the Corporators Council at the Worcester Art Museum. That's it for me. More importantly, for the library, needless to say, it's been a crazy year with the construction projects and the pivoting to a new service delivery model because of the pandemic. So I'm the rookie on the board, and I will say to you that after 1 year's observations, that the trustees are being very ably led by Marguerite Landry, our board chair, and that we work very closely with Ryan Donovan, the director, and Kim Ivers, the assistant director, who recently promoted and deservedly so. And we have also collaborated with Mary Balso, who is the operating project manager on the construction project, and also with John Parent, the town facilities director and the general contractor. We have participated in joint meetings with the select board, with the capital planning committee, with the advisory board and community preservation committee. What's the point? The point is that the library trustees are very interconnected with most town committees and officials with whom we believe we have a cooperative and productive relationship. As for the future of the library, as I see it, as we see it, I think the immediate future is to help guide the phased reopening of the library and to finish the construction and landscaping project. Little longer term perspective, we do plan for a possible expansion of the physical facility, which will enable increased programmatic offerings, which should facilitate the library becoming even more of a hub for the town's educational and cultural activities. I'll say that last piece again, because that's probably the most important thing. We seek to facilitate the library becoming more of a hub for the town's educational and cultural activities. In closing, I would just say that we as trustees are open to suggestions from any and all stakeholders. We are receptive to recommendations as to how to better serve the town. And it's simply a matter of contacting Marguerite or Ryan or Kim Ivers or any trustee. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That about covers it. That's great. All right, our next speaker will be Paul Semino, who is running unopposed for moderator, if you would.
Yes, hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks to everybody on the screen for either participating in running this forum or for actually running for office. It's never an unappreciated thing, at least from my perspective, when folks volunteer in town. There's too much need and too few of us, so thanks to all of you. I am finishing my 4th year as town moderator. And I'm running for another year because I think that the job of the moderator is much more than people maybe at first understand it to be. Obviously, the most visible piece of the job is to preside over town meeting. And that is certainly a very, very important part of the job. It involves very strong collaboration well in advance with the Board of Selectmen, with the advisory committee, with town council, with the town clerk, with the town administrator, to make sure that the meeting itself comes off as smoothly as possible, and as much business gets done in a manner that folks, that the voters feel like they've been heard if they wanted to be heard and understood what has happened. It was especially intense town meeting last year at this time when we decided we needed to go outside. And at the time I said, and I'll reiterate again, the folks that I mentioned, the names of the folks that I mentioned just now, were just unbelievably instrumental in pulling that off, and really, I think, a model for other towns to understand how it can be done in an outdoor setting, as we will do again this year. for those that don't know that. Town meeting this year is on Saturday, May 22nd, starting at 10 a.m. We are going to endeavor to do our utmost to start and finish town meeting in one day, both a morning and an afternoon session with a break for lunch. The folks, the voters on the floor or on the ground, as it were, will have all the say in the world about that. No, not me, but we will do our best. The other really important piece of the job of the moderator, which is maybe not as visible to folks, is to appoint two very important committees in town. One is the advisory committee, and one is the personnel board. I take that responsibility just as much, if not more seriously than any other piece of the job. I do believe that we currently here in 2021 have the strongest finance committee, I'm showing my age, the strongest advisory committee and the strongest personnel board we've ever had. And that has nothing to do with me other than being lucky enough that terrific people have volunteered for each of those bodies. I think that town meeting is very well served by both. And I do, as I say, take very much pride in making sure that those entities are humming like a top. Now, there are a few nominees I have on the Public Works Planning Board that might be saying, hey, what about me? The moderator shares with the Planning Board the responsibility for populating the Public Works Planning Board. And I don't mean to slight those volunteers at all. Their role is obviously a little less visible, although with some of the challenges the town has coming up in the next couple of years, that may change as well. So I want to reiterate that I do take all aspects of the role very seriously. I enjoy the role very much. I'm indebted to the voters who send me there each year, and happy to run each year for the job, and look forward, I hope, to continuing in that job in 2021, 2022. So I'll leave it at that, Marguerite. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Paul. It's good to hear the educational part of it. I think for people in town who don't realize the behind the scenes activities that you're responsible for, it's quite a bit, actually. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
And part of that comes out at town meeting itself, because there are always folks in the audience that have been to 50 of them, and there's always folks in the audience that have been to they're coming to the first one.
Right.
So, drawing that balance and helping move things along while everybody feels taken care of, I think is very important.
Yes, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Chelsea Malinowski is our next candidate for the Board of Health.
Thanks, Marguerite. Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea Malinowski, and I'm running for the Board of Health in this coming election. First off, I'd like to thank the trustees, Director Donovan, and the staff for hosting this event and giving all of the candidates on the screen the opportunity to introduce themselves. I currently serve on the Board of Selectmen and previously on advisory. I have my MBA from Bentley University in finance. I worked for 13 years in healthcare finance and am familiar with HIPAA compliance. My husband, Jason, and I have 3 young children and have lived in Southborough for 8 years. My goal in getting involved in town government is that we make good financial and policy decisions that will benefit all Southborough residents, current and future. I chose to run for Board of Health because I thought it was too important of a position to have a write-in campaign. The board has had to change gears significantly in the past year due to the pandemic and are still trying to stabilize a long-term plan for the future. I think my financial background and leadership skills can assist with formulating a sustainable and financially responsible plan for the Board of Health while enhancing the services that the board is able to provide. Collaboration with all resources in town is essential to the success of the Board of Health. We need to capitalize on grant and federal funding, shared services, opportunities, and regionalization. I'm looking forward to having a lot of success by building the foundation for this department. And I hope to have your vote on May 11th. Thanks, Marguerite.
Good, thank you. And thank you to everyone for running. Okay, so our next candidate is going to be Rob Braccio, who is, I think you're running for the first time as a candidate in Southborough, right?
First time ever running, yeah.
Yay, that's very exciting. Congratulations, I think.
Thank you.
Could you tell us a bit about why you're running and what your background is?
Sure. Good evening. I want to thank Marguerite Landry and the library trustees, along with the director, Ryan Donovan, for the opportunity to attend this Meet the Candidates event and introduce myself to my fellow residents. My name is Robert Brascio. I'm a 2020 graduate of Algonquin Regional High School, and I'm a freshman at Fitchburg State University enrolled in their criminal justice police program. I've lived in Southborough my entire life, which is 19 years. I've spent pretty much my entire life volunteering within our community. From the time I was 3 years old, I volunteered packing boxes for our troops overseas and for those affected by past natural disasters. I've been an unofficial member of the Community Emergency Response Team, and since I was 8 years old, as I was 8 years old, since my parents are members of that. I have received accommodations from the State House of Representatives for my volunteerism. Prior to the pandemic, I spent a lot of time at the senior center, sometimes helping deliver food, treats, and sometimes just hanging out with our great seniors. I decided I wanted to run for Housing Authority a few months ago, and it was a decision I took very seriously. I talked to a current member of the board, watched meetings, read minutes, and researched state public housing programs. I then made the decision that this was my next step in serving our community, which has provided me with an excellent education. I feel this will be a great way for me to ease myself into town government with a seat that has been vacant for multiple years. I look forward to the opportunity to learn more, grow my knowledge, and continue to give back to our amazing town. I would ask for and appreciate your vote on May 11th. Thank you.
Thank you and well said. And if you didn't tell me your age, I wouldn't believe it. So thank you. All right, that's great. We'll move on now. I think Jen Primack is on. Thank you for joining us. And if you could give your statement, that would be lovely.
So thank you for inviting me here. It's great to be here. I'm running for re-election for the Southborough School Committee. This will be my second time. So I served a 3-year term last time, and I had never been on any kind of town or government group. And so I think it was a really good, it was a steep learning curve, I think, at the beginning. I had a lot of goals and things that I wanted to work on. And then the pandemic hit. So I accomplished some of the things that I wanted to do and to work on. And then a lot of it was crisis management and a lot of time spent in managing all of everything that we needed to deal with COVID. During my term, I served on the budget committee, on capital planning committee. I was also on the start time task force. And so that was one of the big accomplishments for me over the last term, because I felt very passionately about working to change the start time for our high school students. And that will be changing. So that felt very productive. Also worked with food services and wanting to implement healthier meals in our school as a work in progress. So there's still some other things like integrating more community organizations into what we're doing in our schools. That's something that I wasn't really able to focus on too much last term, and I hope to get to this term. In terms of my background, I'm a psychologist, assistant professor at Brown Medical School, and a researcher. So I spend most of my time in data management, budget management, and clinical research with depression and suicide as my area. I think all of those areas have come together to kind of make me the person that I am on school as a school committee member. So I rely on data to make decisions. I care very much about things like mental health in addition to academic learning. And I've served a mentorship role for many graduate students and university students. So I have some background in education too. I'm very excited to continue that. I hope that you give me your vote. And I did want to also mention that Kim Tollender and I, she's the other candidate who's running, this is an uncontested race, will be outside of New York Bagels on Saturday morning. So if any community members just want to meet us and have questions, would like to talk to us more, we will be there for an hour at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning to answer questions and talk to the community. So thank you for having me.
That's great, and I'm sure there will be a lot of interest. It's certainly been an interesting year for the school systems. And thank you for your service, as they say. It's really above and beyond what anyone could have expected. So thank you. Our next two speakers would be,
Oh, do you want, Marguerite, is it okay if I just make a quick note before we
yes,
move
I
on?
forgot. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so
Yep.
I just wanted to mention that Kim Tollender from the Southborough School Committee would have joined us tonight, but she had a conflict, which sadly is unavoidable. I think we always have one or two people, even though we try to get everybody. So she would have been here, and I'm sorry, we scheduled it on a night she couldn't attend. For people who are following the Northborough Southborough Regional School Committee race, we are going to have a separate Meet the Candidates event for those candidates that we're filming next Tuesday. So please stay tuned. There will be a follow-up just with the Regional School Committee candidates that comes out next week. Thank you. I will be quiet now.
No, good news to hear. Save the date. All right. So to move forward to the selectmen's race, two candidates, Andrew Dennington, Michael Weishand. By a flip of the coin, Andrew goes first with his statement.
Good evening. And first, I'd like to thank you, Marguerite and Ryan, for putting together this format, which I know requires some creativity in improvisation. I also want to thank Michael for running. I think Paul is absolutely correct that there's too great a need and not enough people. Although we may disagree on some things, I don't have any doubt that the town is better off for Michael's work, for the town in particular, his work on a lot of historical preservation issues and the Burnett House. And also thank you for people who will be watching this video. So my name is Andrew Dennington, and I'm running for the Board of Selectmen on May 11th because I believe that my background and my experience and my temperament is best suited for the position at this time. I live at 10 Carolyn Terrace, and I live there with my wife, Catherine. We moved here 8 years ago. We now have two kids, Anne, who is gonna turn 6 next week and is in the Finn school, and Francis, who's 3. So since a year after I moved to town, I looked for ways to get involved. And I ended up as an alternate member on the ZBA. I then served on the ZBA for 5 years. And in 2019, I joined the advisory committee, which is our essentially our finance committee. So I think I have 7 years of very relevant and solid experience, but I also still bring the perspective of somewhat of a newcomer. So on the ZBA, I think the main thing I learned there was I was on the ZBA during a time when we were faced with some very difficult decisions and tough, contentious issues. And I became the chair for 2 years at kind of a tumultuous time on the board. And I am proud of the fact that I think I helped steer the board in the right direction and made it a board which was more respectful towards everyone coming before us, including not just abutters, applicants, all parties. And I've learned from that experience that when you're in these types of positions, you're not going to be making decisions which make everyone happy, but if you're guided by what you think is in the best interest of our town, I think that'll serve everyone well. Another thing that has been rewarding since I've been running is I have been able, I think, to earn the support of some people who I thought might have disagreed with some of the decisions I made on some of the controversial issues that came up on ZBA. I think that on the advisory committee, one point which was interesting, I briefly was on the master plan committee as the ZBA representative, and I definitely experienced a jarring contrast from the time I went from the master plan committee to the advisory committee, in that all ways to improve the town, we have to think about how are we going to pay for it. So the advisory committee, we help present the budget to town meeting, literally line by line review of every single department's budgets, thinking about year-over-year increases, what should staffing levels be, as well as thinking long-term about how we can stabilize the long-term picture of our town. I think that I would encourage people who may not know me to please speak to any of the people who I worked with over the past 7 years on the Zoning Board of Appeals and the advisory committee. I'm analytical, deliberative, collaborative. I know what I don't know, and I know that it's important for me to learn from others who may have deep experience on some issues. I'd also like to think I have a relatively good sense of humor, which helps me work productively with other people. And these are, I think, important qualities because we're in a town instead of a city. We're not, we don't have a mayor. We have a 5-member board of selectmen. So if you want to get things that are important to you done, it's important to be able to work productively with other people. And I think I have skill in doing that. My main priorities are to, 1, maintain and enhance the quality of our public schools. That has a personal interest to me because I'm a product of public schools. I'm from Acton. I went to Acton-Boxborough Regional High School. And my daughter is in kindergarten here at the Finn School. I think it's one of the core functions of municipal government is public education. The second is working towards stabilizing the town's long-term fiscal picture. Again, I think of the contrast that I had in 2019 of thinking about the town's long-term things that we want, and then facing the picture of how we can pay for things. And there have been some worrisome data points that we have heard recently in the advisory committee about our long-term fiscal picture. So it requires real discipline in a lot of ways. Finally, I have always been interested in working to revitalize our downtown. And here is where I think I bring the perspective of a newcomer. This is something that is of particular interest, I think, to newer residents and younger families. We would like to have places more in the center of our town where we can gather. And there just isn't as much vitality or commerce in our downtown, particularly after 3 p.m. Oftentimes you'll drive around downtown Southborough, particularly on weekends, and see very few cars actually parked and people walking on the streets. We should be looking to ways to revitalize our town and bring new energy. And that also helps us, I think, work towards our fiscal situation. Some other things I'm always interested in, maintaining the respect and civility in all of our town meetings. I think the residents deserve that. Again, and welcoming newer residents, bringing newer people into the process, and particularly looking out for the interests of young families. So that's a brief summary of who I am, what I've done, the work that I have done for the town so far, my priorities and why I'm running, and I hope that I can earn your vote on May 11th.
Thank you very much for that. That was excellent. I just would like parenthetically to say we've been joined by Mimi Luttrell, who's running for the planning board. And after Michael and Andrew have finished their presentations and had some questions, then we'll move on to you, Mimi, because I know you had to join late. So welcome aboard. And now, Michael, your statement, please. Michael Weishan, running for selectman.
Hello, everyone. And thank you all again. I echo Andrew's sentiments for putting this together, and also is his willingness to run in this election. It's always a great thing to have 2 people and 2 different viewpoints to balance. So 30-second version about me. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I came out to the East Coast to go to Harvard on full scholarship. I hung around Cambridge for a very short period of time and then found myself out here in Southborough because I began running a landscape architecture firm, which had always been my passion. And I was looking for a little extra space. And I thought, well, maybe I'll stay here for a couple of years and move on, who knows? And 29 years later, here I am, still hanging around. So it's been a really interesting time to see the changes that Southborough has gone through and to think about where we could go from here. I'm currently the chair of the Historical Commission. I've served 6 terms in that capacity, not continuously, some in the 90s and some, again, fairly recently. I authored the demolition delay bylaw. I was certainly I was one of the starters of the adaptive reuse bylaw, which I think is a huge asset for the town, for people who are looking to stay here and perhaps have some additional income for historic properties. And something I don't seem to ever get any credit for, I actually saved that barn that they're putting up on Chestnut Hill, at Chestnut Hill Farm. That was me saving the barn. And the barn just appeared there, and there's like no, thank you, Michael. So I joked with the trustees that I want at least a sign or something on the lavatory that says, produced by Michael Weisson and the Southborough Historical Commission. I also run the Southborough Historical Society, which we managed to rescue in a very Herculean effort after a flood in 2015. The society has an incredible set of records for a town of this size, and it is an enormous resource for us, which we continue to develop. Very briefly, I decided to run for selectman because I think there is a real opportunity here post-COVID to do some original thinking about some of the issues that face us. And that's what I do every day. I run a firm of architects and landscape architects, and we are asked by clients to create something from nothing. We're given a problem, we're given a budget, and then we're asked to create something that addresses the need. And I have looked around Southborough for a long time and wondered why we don't have more proactive, creative thinking. We've talked forever, for instance, about ways to link the north and south parts of town with biking trails and pedestrian trails. You get on your bike to your death, practically, and I do biking around town, so I can tell you about this. I'm very much interested also too in promoting this idea of some sort of community center. One of our schools is looks like we're going to be losing enough students to take one of our schools offline. And I think it would be absolutely fantastic to think about how we can rethink those educational spaces for a community center, especially for our seniors, with a pool and exercise facilities. We spend a huge amount of money on town and our youth, which is great. I'm very supportive of that. But our population is aging, and we have a long way to go when it comes to, I think, amenities for and help, financial help as well, for our seniors to stay in place. By and large, I also am hugely interested in preserving the historical nature of Southborough. I think that's something that I have shown through all of my activities. I remain very concerned that we formulate these plans every 5 or 10 years, these great master plans, and then we don't actually follow them. We have a lot of really reactive thinking in our town government and not a lot of proactive thinking. So if elected, that is what I would bring to the Board of Selectmen. I have the privilege of having voted for 4 of the 5 current members. I know them all fairly well and have dealt with them in various capacities. And I would look forward to a very good working relationship with them, with the idea of bringing some new ways and some new ways of looking at things to a board that's been dominated, pretty much by, let's say non-design professionals. So that's my 5 minutes.
Good, thank you. All right, now I have 3 questions that I'm going to ask to both of you. And I'll ask first to Andrew and second to Michael, because that's just the way it's going to be. And are you ready? This is going to be very exciting. Okay, the first question,
Ready.
Nobody's anonymous in this. We asked your names. This is from Janet Maney. She asks, given the controversy surrounding the Park Central development and the concerns of so many neighbors, do you yourself think this is a good project for Southborough, and why? What role do you see the selectmen playing in addressing the residents' concern if this project is allowed by the courts to go forward? Do you need 20 minutes to think about that, or to go, Andrew?
No, because I have, when I was on the ZBA, we had dealt with multiple aspects of the Park Central matter. So I just want to explain the roles that I had in the deliberation over the Park Central matter. The 40B comprehensive permit, which is the subject of the appeal in the Worcester Superior Court right now, I was not on that board. And that's simply because I was appointed too late. The hearing had already began. I was, however, on the board that considered the Park Central's application for a use variance. And that was the part of the proposal that allows market rate housing, which is not affordable, to be combined with the apartment building, which is the 40B component. And I did not vote for that. And that was because I felt that it was a critical point in the town's negotiations, the strategy about how to deal with this. And I thought there was more that could have been done about this. There were then a series of, kind of, I think in legalese, call it like a collateral attack on these permits, where in one of them, I found that our board said that the use variance had not lapsed due to a timing issue. And there was a court decision which said that that was correct. And I also was the chair of an important hearing that preserved the planning board's ability to undertake a site plan review of this. So in terms of things that will happen, if the decision of the Worcester Superior Court is to reject the appeal from this, I believe that it's going to go back to the planning board to have a hearing on a site plan review. And that's going to be an opportunity where people's concerns can be addressed. I mean, as to the big picture of, I think the question was, is this a good project for the town? In a lot of ways, it's not, because it takes the whole burden of the need to develop affordable housing units and puts it in one area of the town. But then the other flip side of this is, I was just looking at the town's the housing production plan, which Shopsy puts together and put together last year. And according to that, Southborough needs to add an estimated 66 affordable units to its subsidized housing inventory by 2024 to meet the 10% requirement. So a troublesome thing has always been, without the units at Park Central, where would those other 66 units go? I think that Park Central is an example of where there's not really a silver bullet answer to how to deal with it. I think that there was a key moment back several years ago where I thought the town could have gone a little bit slower and got some additional mitigation measures. But things that could happen, one, the board of Selectmen voted several years ago to not allow access to Flag Road from the development. I would be open to that, but just consider that if we ever got to this point, there already would have been a court decision saying that the town's need for affordable housing outweighed the traffic and safety impacts on Flag Road. So that would pose a legal challenge to the board in going through with that. Certainly, I would certainly hope for, the reason why the access is onto Flag Road is because the Department of Transportation did not allow access onto Route 9. If there's any way the Board of Selectmen can play a productive role in trying to put the access point back on Route 9, I think that that would be something that we should explore. But I think that it's important to keep in mind about the whole discussion about Park Central. This is a product of the state 40B law, which ties the hands of municipal officials in regulating developments like this. So there aren't, unfortunately, I know this answer is probably not going to be totally satisfactory to some people, but there just aren't magic solutions to this. I would just say that I have a pretty long-term strategic analytical approach to things. So that's why things like this that come up in the future, I think I recognize what are the critical times to really pause and think to try to get the things that are best for the town. So we're going to have to deal the hand which is dealt us. And so I hope that that answers the question. Thanks.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, thank you. And now, Michael, would you like me to read the question again, or would you?
No, I got it. I got it.
All right.
Thank you, Marguerite. So I am absolutely unbelievably opposed to this Park Central project in ways that are almost visceral. This is exactly the type of development that Southborough doesn't need. It's in a terrible location. It will gut one of our historic roads. And I must disagree with my my dear opponent here. There was a way out of this. And it would have been for the various boards of town led by the Board of Selectmen to be more proactive about our affordable housing. This is not something that has come as a great mystery or a surprise. We've known that we can be held captive by these developers because of these 40B considerations from the very start. And we've done absolutely nothing really as a town to encourage affordable housing. Now we have opportunities coming up. We have the South Union School, which the board is exploring selling or renovating or doing various proposals. I have written to them several times, both as myself and via the Historical Commission, of our desire to preserve that building, and also to point out what a wonderful opportunity that would be for affordable housing. I also think that, that again, with this whole idea of thinking inventively, right, about thinking not quite so in the box, that there may be other ways around these issues that we haven't considered. There's a large parcel, for instance, at where the Andrea restaurant is sitting, and it's been undeveloped for years, just sitting, decaying. What about soliciting proposals to do some affordable housing, concentrated housing there, and getting our units involved? Take a large number of the units are required. Or maybe even reconsidering some of these office buildings. Are they going to be refilled along Route 9 after COVID? It's unclear whether the type of real estate landscape that we had previously, pre-COVID, is going to be repeated after the pandemic is over. Those buildings already have parking, septic, space, and could be converted to housing fairly easily. So I think that there are ways around this. If I'm elected to the Board of Selectmen, I will do whatever is legally possible to delay, prevent, or otherwise disrupt this project, which I think would be disastrous for the residents of the area.
Okay, thank you. That's good. I had a second additional question on that, but I think it's more or less been answered. Tell me what you think. This is from Tim Martell. In 2016, the Board of Selectmen notified the Park Central developer that access to Flag Road would be denied due to traffic safety concerns. As that case is soon to leave the courts, and assuming the project continues, would you vote to deny access to Flag Road for Park Central? I have a yes from Michael, nodding his head, and Andrew?
Yeah, so if we got to that point, that would be because there was already a court decision to which the town was a party, saying that the town's need for affordable housing outweighed the traffic impacts and the safety concerns on Flag Road. So realistically, I think the town would not have a strong position, but I am not foreclosing any options. And so I'm open to it. I just think it kind of overpromises things a little bit to say, well, I'll take this vote to close the road and then the whole development will go away. I think that, having been on that board for 5 years, there are, as I said, this is a law which puts municipal officials in difficult positions where, unfortunately, sometimes on the front lines, you feel the brunt of residents' understandable frustration with the situation, but it's also a byproduct of the fact that the town has an acute, not the town, the state has an acute need for affordable housing. 40B, there was previously a ballot initiative to try to get rid of it. It was not successful. So I think also on affordable housing, I do not see silver bullet solutions of these other parcels. If the number I mentioned was 66 additional units to get to the 10% by 2024. I don't know if there's room in that in the South Union School and Andrea's restaurant.
Okay, Michael?
I don't know either, but we haven't looked, and that's part of the problem. We need to be more inventive and have a bigger vision in this town about what is possible. Generally, if you can identify what's possible, there are ways to make it happen, but we haven't really looked, and we have a terrible tendency to overlook our master plans that we spend a huge amount of time developing and then kind of produce these beautiful volumes and then throw them in the trash. Again, this is not something that has come upon us quickly. And, if we don't get this affordable housing thing solved, there will be another Park Central somewhere looming on our doorstep. because it is just a hammer that these developers can then wield over us until this business of the affordable housing is addressed. So it certainly would be one of my priorities to start working on this immediately to figure out where these units could possibly come from.
And the Flag Road question would be?
Oh, would I? Yes. I mean, I think that there are all sorts of, I mean, there should be ways, Andrew's correct. If the court rules against us, I think it's going to be a very difficult thing to say, oh, you just simply close the road. There has been talk about making it a one-way road. And again, other options need to be explored on this. The last time I heard that there would have to be a traffic survey in order to get that done. So, there's no easy bullet, but I think that to make it as unwelcome and I am trying to find the right word for this. Well, let's just hope that it just doesn't get built. We're gonna try to do whatever we can to make sure that this huge monstrosity doesn't get built on our doorstep.
A thorny issue. Thank you. All right, now.
Indeed.
I have another question, the third question, and it's actually got two parts. And two people have actually presented a very similar question. So I'm going to put them both together and I'll read them and stop me if you need me to do more. The first part of the question comes from Patricia Burns Fiore, and it is, do you think the large nonprofit private schools in Southborough should contribute to the support of the town and the services they use by paying their fair share of the tax burden? And do you agree with Mass Bill H 3080, which would require pilot payments, payment in lieu of taxes, equal to 25% of the taxable amount of property owned by these schools? If so, what would you do to ensure these large nonprofit landowners fairly contribute to the financial support of Southborough? Okay, and then I also have another really basically addition to that question. I think this is for Kathy Cook. Can you explain your strategy for increasing the pilot payments for the town? Specifically for candidate Wysan, you once mentioned increasing direct fees for service and actively reclassifying parcels as non-essential to educational purposes and therefore taxable. Can you explain more what your plan for direct fees is and how legally you will be able to reclassify parcels as non-essential to educational purposes? For candidate Dennington, how would you solve the same issues? Is that enough? What part of that would you like me to read over again, or can you remember? That first it goes to Andrew.
Which one of us would you like to go?
Andrew, you lost or won the coin toss, depending on how you look at it. So it goes to you first.
Okay, so now this multi-part question is a flavor of the type of difficult decisions that the Board of Selectmen face. I'll start with just an overview of this. So, we have different nonprofit institutions in town that have different levels of support in terms of pilot payments, with NECC being on one end of the scale, and I think contributing more, Fay School being on the other end, contributing not a lot, and then St. Mark's in the middle. Right now, I believe there's ongoing negotiations between a representative of the Board of Selectmen and St. Mark's about voluntarily increasing pilot payments. The town has been able to, in some recent years, successfully persuade institutions like St. Mark's to contribute by, for example, contributing to the cost of fire trucks, police cars, things like that. They see a connection between public safety, directly contributing to public safety, and protecting the needs of their students and faculty. They tend to prefer that more rather than to just checks that then the town will decide how to spend. So there is that's one side of the equation where we want to get as much as we can out of that, voluntary negotiation. My concern about this bill, which I have looked into, is it's just a bill. You know, I used to be a congressional aide, and there's zillions of bills that are just introduced, but they don't really have a good chance of passing. So the idea that the town would affirmatively, our Board of Selectmen would say, we support this bill. Let's think about the potential upsides of it, the potential downsides to it. The potential upside is that in terms of getting this passed through the state legislature, what matters more? The sentiments of a town like Southborough or places like Boston, Cambridge, Worcester? So I don't know that we really are going to have a real influence on the up or down vote on this. It's certainly something that we should be in the toolbox, but there is potentially an immediate downside of taking an aggressive position on an issue like this, which is having our negotiating partners clam up on voluntary pilot payments. But one solution that I think is a really interesting idea is a stormwater utility enterprise fund. And these are payments which are more legally tested than reclassifying parcels. And I have looked into that. And my understanding of state property tax exemptions for nonprofits is it's simply not really, I think it's illusory to say that we're going to reclassify parcels in places like St. Mark's, and then there'll be, we can tax them, because in order to be non-exempt, a parcel has to be both not being used, not consistent with the charitable organization's purpose, and non-contiguous to the institution, their principal location. I took a quick look. I'm aware of 2 parcels that St. Mark's owns that are not contiguous to their main location. That's not really a lot of money that you could get from those. Whereas, you know, the enterprise fund, the stormwater approach, these are fees that you can impose on tax exempt entities that have been legally tested. Basically, you're getting the tax exempt institution to contribute to the town shore of things like stormwater management. And the way that you calculate this is based on the amount of impervious surface area that an institution has. It also has some environmental impacts. It encourages commercial institutions and tax exempt entities to reduce the amount of impervious material surface area that they have. So again, this is an issue where there's not really a silver bullet answer. The simple, under state law, tax exempt entities are exempt from tax. So if you really want to get the best outcome for our town, you have to think very strategically and think about a negotiating posture. So I want to keep open the possibility of the town working to support this bill, but where it stands, based on some discussions I've had with people in the State House, this isn't on the immediate horizon. So certainly it's something that we should consider, but I don't think it offers immediate relief to the town. What offers the best outcome for the town is continuing the negotiations which are going on right now, and looking into stormwater fees.
Okay, thank you. And Michael.
So full disclosure, I worked with Ms. Fiore on this at town meeting, some of you may remember. So this is something that I have a great passion for, and something that Ms. Fiore has a great passion for, because she lives up in Fayetteville, where the School for Autism has been purchasing properties right, left, and sideways, sometimes with a very slack management style in terms of maintaining them, and in terms of there was issues of huge parties during COVID, and it's been a real problem. Not to mention the fact that these properties go off the tax base. You know, again, this goes back to my whole approach about, you know, if rather than just simply saying we can't do this, which has essentially been the opinion of the Board of Selectmen. We don't want to do this. We can't do this. Let's continue to get a fire truck here, a cruiser there. Let's try some of these policies. Now, this business of reclassifying these parcels is not new. It was actually done down in Milton, and the assessors down there, we talked to them and they simply said, they said to the entities in question, we are reassessing the use of these parcels. And if you don't like it, you can fight us in court. You explain to us how these parcels are instrumental to your educational purpose. And they came to some negotiation. This has happened again up at Andover, where they make substantial pilot payments. I don't think we're asking for anything unreasonable here. We have a tremendous cost that the taxpayers of Southborough pay to have these schools around. Granted, we get the benefits of their beautiful buildings and the look, but they don't contribute a huge amount to the economy. They're pretty self-contained. They take a huge drain from our school budget because there's, I forget at last look, how many children were actually attending public schools from St. Mark's and Fay. I think it was in the 20s somewhere at $17,000 a piece. And the amount of property that's been taken up on Main Street in the last few years is phenomenal. I mean, parcel after parcel, we've lost 3 parcels in the last couple of years on Main Street, with no sign that this is going to slow down anytime soon. And every time one of those parcels on Main Street goes out of the tax rolls, we're down 10,000 a year for, in perpetuity. So I don't think it's fair that we provide services, fire, rescue, plowing, road access. I'm all for this sewer tax if we can do something along those lines. But again, we need to think constructively about what we can legally do, because I heard what Marty Healy said at the last Board of Selectmen meeting about how he prefers to go along with viewing them as neighbors, as not as adversaries. And I think that's fine, up until the point when they can continually stall and say, no, we're not paying anything. In Fay schools, the worst of them all. So I think there needs to be some negotiating tactics here, and a combination of the carrot and the stick. And if we work to try to get this House bill passed, all the better, because that takes the responsibility right out for us, and it's mandated across the state. So does that answer that question? I think we got both of them in there, didn't we?
Yeah, yes, it sounds like we've covered it. So I think for both the selectmen candidates, we've heard a great deal, and thank you very much, and good luck in the election. It's our only contestant.
Very good, very good.
Yeah. Also, and now our final guest for the evening is Mimi Luttrell, who is running for the planning board, rerunning for the planning board. Do you have your statement, Mimi, that you'd like to read for us?
Sure. As you said, my name is Mimi Luttrell, and I'm running for re-election to the planning board. My husband and I have been in town for 30 years, so I guess that's considered a newcomer in Southborough. We have 2 children that started off at Southborough Village Preschool, went all through Southborough schools, and graduated from Algonquin. My first foray into town government was in 2002, when I was part of a small grassroots budgeted ballot initiative committee that worked successfully to get the CPA adopted in Southborough. And then in 2003, I was appointed to the Open Space Preservation Commission, and I was on that commission for 13 years before I was elected to the planning board. As a planning board member, I worked with Michael and the Historical Commission to pass the adaptive reuse of historic buildings bylaw. I'm the planning board representative on the Metro West Regional Collaborative, and I'm currently chairing the Master Plan Committee.
Thank you. I do have a question for you from a voter, and it is for you, Mimi.
Yay.
Yes. Specifically, this is from Moises Kushner. He asks, are you going to do anything about the right turn only sign at the exit of the town center into Vickery Hill Road? It is seldom obeyed. As a resident since 2003, I know why it is there. The need for it stopped when the mailboxes for the condominium were moved to its community center. Planning board officials have given low priority to it and moved away before accomplishing it. So he is asking you why the right turn only sign is still leaving the post office parking lot and going into Mount Vickery.
Well, so I think that was a condition of the approval way back in whenever it was approved. And I agree with them, people ignore it all the time. I see police taking a left turn there and buses, and it's always ignored. But I think that would take a modification of the site plan to remove that condition.
So good answer. It does explain that it is a condition of the site of the post office that the sign is there. All right, good. Thank you. That's as good an answer as we can.
I'll look into it though, because
Thank you.
it annoys me also.
Even better. Well, listen, I would like to thank all the candidates for their work for this and also for wanting to run, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. And thank you to each of you. And I wish you a good evening. Ryan, do you have anything else to add?
I'll just echo what Marguerite said. Thank you all for participating. I know many of you you're already involved in boards and committees, and then we asked you to come on another one for an additional hour. So we really appreciate your time tonight. And we think that this event probably exceeded our expectations. So thank you all for
Yes,
doing
thank you
this.
very much. Wonderful. Okay, good night,
Thank you
everybody.
very much for putting this
Good
together.
night. Yes, exactly.
It's Ryan's
Good night.
hard work.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, everyone. Good luck.
Good night, everybody. Good luck.